From the moment you first opened your eyes, before you had a name, before you learned the rules of the world, before language carved pathways through your mind, something was already shaping the rhythm of your existence. It was there in the silent cradle of infancy, guiding the way your attention drifted towards certain faces, certain voices, certain patterns in the air. It was there when you took your first steps into the unknown, when you reached out with tiny hands toward objects you could not yet understand. It was present even then, that quiet current running beneath the surface of everything you would later call thought, intuition, memory, or destiny. And although decades may have passed since those early days, that current has never left you. It has pulsed beneath every decision you thought you made on your own, every coincidence that seemed too perfect to ignore, every moment that pulled you forward in ways you could not explain. You might assume these movements are simply luck, psychology, or the accumulated residue of your past experiences. But that explanation would be too thin, too small to contain the fullness of what you have felt. There is a deeper architecture behind the scenes, a dimension of guidance that rarely announces itself directly, preferring instead to hide behind instinct, attraction, synchronicity, and the subtle magnetism of the events that seem to just happen. It doesn't shout, it doesn't force, it doesn't command. Instead, it whispers through the arrangement of moments, shaping the corridors you pass through without ever revealing its name. Some people call it fate. Others call it intuition, the subconscious mind, the inner self, or a spiritual current that animates all living beings. Yet none of these labels truly capture the essence of what unfolds. Fate implies something externally imposed. Intuition suggests something vaguely emotional. The subconscious feels too clinical, too limited to account for the uncanny precision with which certain experiences align. And the idea of a spiritual current, while poetic, risks drifting too far into abstraction. What we are pointing toward is something that carries pieces of all these interpretations, yet is not identical to any of them. It is both intimately personal and profoundly universal, as though your life is a single note played by an instrument far older and vaster than your body. Think of your life as a tapestry. From the outside, one sees colors, shapes, and the shifting imagery of events merging into patterns. But beneath the visible layer is a network of threads that cross, knot, tighten, loosen, or connect in ways you do not consciously control. Each thread appears to wander at first glance, yet somehow together, they create an image that feels purposeful. That hidden weaving, the one occurring behind the surface, out of view, is where the true force of guidance resides. It is not something that predetermines each event, but rather something that steers you subtly, the way a gentle current directs the movement of a drifting leaf. This force is not an external puppeteer, nor is it simply your personality navigating the world of cause and effect. It is something more mysterious, something that feels as though it belongs to you and yet exceeds you. It has followed you faithfully through every transition of your life. The moments of joy that felt like improbable gifts, the accidents that led to opportunities you never saw coming, the storms that stripped pieces of you away so you could grow into someone you had not yet imagined. Even the times when you felt most lost or abandoned were held within this silent architecture, as though something was quietly rearranging your path while allowing you to believe you were wandering without direction. Perhaps you remember a moment when you chose one small decision, a minor yes, an inconsequential no, that altered the trajectory of everything that came afterward. At the time, it felt effortless, even random. Only much later did you look back and realize that 1,000 possibilities had converged into that single instant. And somehow, almost impossibly, you ended up on the path where you were meant to be. People often describe these experiences as coincidence or chance because they lack another framework to hold them. Yet in the quiet recesses of reflection, most human beings have felt that faint suspicion that there was something more, some hidden presence, some interior intelligence, or some unseen hand arranging the sequence of steps. This guidance often reveals itself in the form of longing, the sudden pull to a place you've never been, the inexplicable comfort you feel around certain individuals, the urge to create or explore or change your environment even when doing so makes no logical sense. Longing is one of its languages, and the heart is a translator. But it also speaks through discomfort, through the moments when life refuses to let you settle, when something pushes you away from what you thought you wanted, or when circumstances unravel no matter how tightly you try to hold them together. Guidance is not always gentle. Sometimes it must empty your hands so you can receive what you were never courageous enough to reach for. If you have ever stood at the crossroads of your life and felt a certainty that could not be explained by facts alone, a wordless knowing that something was waiting for you just out of view, that was the presence working through you. If you have ever felt protected by something invisible, or warned by a feeling you couldn't articulate, or pulled toward a transformation you resisted, you have already encountered it. The truth is that this guiding presence has been with you long before your conscious mind ever arrived, and it will continue to move within you long after the narratives you tell about yourself have faded. You may not have called it by any name. You may have dismissed it or misunderstood it, but you have felt it, and recognizing it is the first step toward understanding the hidden architecture that influences the shape of your existence. This exploration begins with acknowledging that your life has never been random. There is a coherence, a hidden logic, a secret symmetry beneath the surface. And once you learn to see its patterns, you will never see your story the same way again. If the introduction was an invitation to recognize the subtle current beneath your life, then this section is the moment in which we turn our gaze inward and begin to understand the architecture of that current, not through the rigid language of doctrine or the formulas of belief, but through a softer, more fluid exploration of the ideas that arise naturally when someone senses that their life has been shaped by more than logic alone. These themes are not presented as instructions or commandments. Instead, they are woven into quiet corners of experience itself, emerging to the way life unfolds when you stop trying to force meaning and begin to listen to the patterns already guiding you. At the heart of this exploration is the recognition that human consciousness operates on more than one level. There is a conscious mind, bright, active, analytical, endlessly interpreting and judging. Then there's a deeper layer, the one that moves quietly beneath your thoughts, filtering sensations, anticipating outcomes, nudging your attention towards certain possibilities. It behaves almost like an inner compass, not in the moral sense, but in the existential sense, gently turning you toward experiences that match the shape of your growth. You can ignore it or distract yourself from it, but you cannot silence it completely. Its guidance may seem irrational because it does not speak in words or logic. It speaks in the language of alignment, resonance, and inner stirring. To understand this guidance, you must recognize a truth many people suspect but rarely articulate. Your life is shaped less by the decisions you consciously make and more by the invisible inclinations that draw you toward one path and away from another. Think of the patterns you return to without understanding why. The relationships that feel familiar, the environments that energize you, the lessons you keep reenacting until you learn them fully. These recurring loops are not accidents. They are invitations. Life repeats experiences not because you are cursed or stuck, but because something within you is trying to reveal itself through them. Each repetition is a quieter form of guidance, a whisper urging you to look more closely at the truth hiding beneath the event. Another theme woven into this mystery is the illusion of randomness. We are taught to see life as a sequence of unrelated events, each one governed by chance or circumstance. But the more you pay attention, the harder it becomes to maintain that belief. Certain people enter your life with uncanny precision at the exact moment when their presence becomes necessary. Opportunities appear only when you have reached a stage, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, where you can understand and receive them. Even the losses, the disruptions, the abrupt endings that force you to let go of what you once clung to often reveal themselves in hindsight as catalysts for a transformation you would never have chosen on your own. If you study your life carefully, it becomes impossible not to notice that the timing of key events has an order that defies coincidence. Not because they were predetermined, but because there's a rhythm in the unfolding of human growth, a pattern that emerges when your inner world and outer world collide. This is the second great theme, the interplay between inner state and outer reality. You cannot experience what you are not ready to perceive, nor can you avoid the lessons required for your evolution. Life presents what your inner architecture calls forth, the way a tuning fork vibrates in response to frequency. Your experiences are not random, they are resonant. This idea leads naturally to another concept. Guidance is not separate from you. It is not an outside force manipulating your life like a puppeteer. Rather, it is a deeper aspect of your own intelligence, a part of you that has access to information your conscious mind cannot process. It sees farther, remembers more, and recognizes connections long before your surface awareness catches up. Some call this the higher self. Others call it intuition, destiny, or even the soul. But whatever name you give it, the essence remains. It is you, but a version of you unbound by the limitations of immediate perception. To appreciate the full scope of this guidance, you must also understand the role of discomfort. People often assume that guidance should feel uplifting or pleasant, but this is not always the case. Growth rarely unfolds within comfort. Instead, guidance often appears disguised as friction. Events that stretch you, relationships that challenge your illusions, circumstances that force you to confront aspects of yourself you would rather ignore. These moments are not punishments. They are purposeful disruptions, clearing space for something more aligned to enter. Every breakdown in your life has held within it the seed of a breakthrough. The guidance is present in both, weaving the collapse and the renewal into one continuous movement. Another essential insight is the paradox of choice. Humans believe they make their decisions based on logic, willpower, or preference. Yet beneath every choice lies an emotional, intuitive, or energetic pull that shapes the outcome long before the mind rationalizes it. You may think you chose a job or a relationship or direction, but often it is the subtler part of you that selected it first, the part that sends something required for your evolution. Your conscious mind simply catches up and builds a narrative to match the decision. This doesn't make your choices less meaningful. It simply means that decision-making is a collaboration between your visible identity and the hidden intelligence that has been with you since birth. And then there's the theme of synchronicity, possibly the most enchanting clue that your life is guided by something deeper. Synchronicity is not coincidence. It is coherence. It is the moment when the inner question you never voiced aloud finds its answer in the outer world. It is when you meet someone who speaks the words you needed to hear, or when a book falls into your life at exactly the right moment, or when a series of small events align so perfectly that the odds become irrelevant. Synchronicity is a universe speaking in its own language, aligning your inner landscape with your outer path. All of these themes, the multi-layered nature of consciousness, the illusion of randomness, the resonance between inner and outer worlds, the paradox of comfort and discomfort, the subtle collaboration of choice, and the shimmering presence of synchronicity form the foundation of understanding what has been guiding your life from beginning, not as an external master, but as an intimate companion, not as fate imposed on you, but as a deeper truth unfolding through you. It is only when you begin to see these patterns as part of a larger continuity that the questions shift from, is something guiding my life, to, how have I not noticed this until now? And once that awareness dawns, your entire relationship with your experiences starts to change. You stop seeing life as something that happens to you and begin to understand it as something that happens through you. To understand the deeper nature of the force guiding your life, it helps to step briefly into the world of symbols. Not the simple symbols of signs or signals, but the vast symbolic landscape that human beings have intuitively woven into myths, dreams, spiritual traditions, and even the quiet metaphors buried inside personal memory. Symbols reveal what logic cannot articulate. They allow the subconscious to speak in images where language struggles. And because the guidance shaping your life moves beneath conscious language, it often expresses itself in symbolic form. These narratives are not to be taken as literal events, but as mirrors through which the invisible becomes visible and the silent becomes understood. Imagine a child in a vast forest, wander without a map or a sense of direction. The forest itself is your life, thick with possibilities, shadows, paths, echoes, and unknowns. In the symbolic world, the child does not walk alone. Though unseen, a presence walks alongside. It doesn't pull the child by the hand, nor does it clear the path ahead. Rather, it nudges the child's gaze towards certain openings in the forest, places where the sunlight filters through in the gentlest way. The child, moved by a feeling they do not understand, turns instinctively toward these patches of light. And although the forest remains unpredictable, the presence ensures the child never strays so far into darkness that they cannot find their way again. This narrative captures the first and most essential truth of guidance. It does not control your journey. It illuminates it. It offers possibilities, not commands. Light, not directions. Another symbolic narrative emerges through the imagery of a river. Picture your life as a long river flowing from the unseen mountains of your birth toward the vast ocean of your destiny. Most people imagine they are swimming, paddling, or rowing across this river, fighting its currents or steering toward their goals. But the deeper truth is softer and more poetic. You are not the swimmer. You are the river. The guidance you sense is the natural flow of your being, the movement of inner wisdom carrying you forward even when your surface mind insists you are stuck. When the river bends unexpectedly, when it widens or narrows, when it rushes or slows, it is not random. It reflects the shifting terrain of your growth. Resistance happens only when you mistake yourself for the swimmer and try to override the river's direction. Harmony emerges when you realize that the current has always been part of you. This narrative teaches that guidance is not external intervention, but the unfolding of your own essence. A third symbol reveals itself through the imagery of a labyrinth, an ancient pattern that appears in cultures throughout history. A labyrinth is not a maze. A maze confuses. A labyrinth reveals. It has one path that leads inward, turning and twisting, sometimes carry you away from the center before spiraling you back toward it. Walking a labyrinth represents the journey of a soul navigating complexity of life. You cannot see the full design from the ground, but from above the pattern is perfectly clear. The labyrinth teaches that progress is not linear, and confusion is not failure. Sometimes a path must lead you away from your destination, so you can approach it from the angle that best prepares you. And while you walk, it feels like an endless sequence of choices. But from the perspective of the labyrinth's architect, the path was always one continuous line. This narrative reveals that the guidance in your life often feels mysterious only because your vantage point is limited. What feels like detour or delay is often the most efficient path toward transformation. A fourth symbolic narrative arises through the ancient archetype of the mirror. In this imagery, every person you meet holds a mirror to a different part of yourself. Some mirrors reflect your beauty, reminding you of your strengths, your unique gifts, or your unspoken kindness. Others reflect your shadows, showing you the traits you deny, suppress, or fear. And still others reflect your potential, offering glimpses of the person you could become if you dare to grow beyond the identity you cling to. In this symbolic world, the guiding force in your life uses relationships as reflective surfaces, not to define you, but to reveal you. The people who disturb you, the ones who heal you, the ones who challenge your assumptions, and the ones who feel inexplicably familiar. All of them are mirrors enlisted by the guidance within you. They appear not randomly, but precisely at the moments when a reflection can catalyze a shift in your awareness. This narrative teaches that guidance often comes in the form of other humans, shaping your inner evolution through the outer dynamics of connection. A fifth symbol emerges through the image of a hidden seed buried deep within the earth. Each seed contains a blueprint of its future self. The tree will become, the height it will reach, the shape of its leaves, and even the way it will sway in the wind. But the seed does not grow on the surface. It begins in darkness. The soil around it presses from all sides, confining it. Yet this pressure is not punishment. It is protection. Without darkness, the seed cannot germinate. Without pressure, it cannot break open. Without breaking open, it cannot grow new roots. Only then does it rise toward the sun. In this narrative, your struggles, delays, and dark nights of the soul are revealed not as moments of failure, but as fertile conditions for inner awakening. The guidance shaping your life knows how to use darkness as a teacher, pressure as a catalyst, and pain as a cracking open that precedes transformation. Perhaps one of the most profound symbolic narratives is the image of a constellation. Each star in the constellation represents a moment in your life, a memory, a turning point, an encounter, or a choice. Viewed individually, the stars appear unrelated, scattered across the sky in a pattern that makes no immediate sense. But the moment you step back, the invisible lines emerge. The scattered points connect. A shape forms. What once seemed random becomes a coherent image. This narrative reveals that life cannot be understood while you are standing too close to it. The guidance becomes visible only when enough events have accumulated for the pattern to reveal itself. And even then, the constellation changes as you grow, shifting into new shapes, offering new meanings. Life is not a single constellation. It is an evolving sky. All these symbolic narratives converge into one truth. The force guiding your life is not separate from you. It is the deeper intelligence of your being, the quiet architect shaping your journey from within. It guides not through commands, but through meaning. It speaks not through words, but through symbols, intuition, synchronicity, and the subtle choreography of events. When you learn to see through a symbolic lens, life stops feeling random and begins to feel like a beautifully orchestrated dance between the visible and the invisible, the known and the unknown, the conscious self and the greater self guiding it. These narratives are not fairy tales. They are metaphors for realities you've already felt, but perhaps never fully acknowledged. They help illuminate the dimension of life where your choices, your growth, and your destiny intersect. Understanding the presence of a guiding force, sensing its subtle movements, and recognizing its symbolic expressions is one thing. But the transformation begins when this awareness enters your daily life, when the abstract becomes a lived experience, when the unseen dialogue between you and your deeper self becomes a conscious relationship rather than a faint whisper you occasionally notice. Integration is not about adopting a belief system or performing spiritual rituals. It is about learning to move through the world with a different kind of attention. It is about walking through your routine life with eyes that see the hidden architecture beneath ordinary events. The moment you begin to live this way, the guidance that has always been present stops feeling like coincidence and begins feeling like collaboration. Practical integration starts with the simplest, most radical act, noticing. Noticing the times your body feels a pull before your mind formulates a thought. Noticing the subtle unease that arises when you begin drifting off a path that is not meant for you. Noticing the sudden clarity that floods in when you stumble upon something aligned with your deeper direction. Life is constantly communicating with you, but most people have trained themselves to override the messages. They choose logic over intuition, comfort over calling, fear over curiosity. To integrate the guiding force into your daily existence, you must begin by granting your subtle signals the legitimacy they deserve. Your intuition is not a poetic metaphor. It is a sensory instrument. It is designed to perceive what your conscious mind cannot. When you start honoring this inner intelligence, the outer world responds. The opportunities that once slipped past unnoticed begin to stand out with a kind of luminous clarity. The relationships that drain you reveal themselves as misalignments rather than obligations. The impulses that once seemed irrational now feel like invitations. Practical integration means building a partnership with your deeper self, letting it help you navigate instead of relegating it to the background. This does not mean abandoning rational thought. Rather, it means allowing logic and intuition to co-govern your choices, each contributing what the other cannot see. Another layer of practical integration involves reflecting on the patterns that keep repeating in your life. These patterns are not meaningless loops. They are messages encoded into experience. If you continually find yourself confronting the same emotional lesson, the same relational dynamic, the same internal obstacle, it means the guidance within you is trying to guide you through something unresolved. Patterns repeat not to punish you, but to reveal you. When you examine these patterns honestly, without defensiveness, blame, or denial, you begin to understand the deeper instructions embedded within them. You uncover beliefs that limit you, the fears that cage you, the habits that shape your identity. Integration requires courage. The courage to look inward without flinching and the courage to change. Real-world implications emerge when you stop resisting these lessons and allow them to shape you. Imagine how different your relationships become when you recognize the mirrors they hold up to you. Imagine how different your work becomes when you follow the subtle pull toward what energizes you rather than what drains you. Imagine how different your emotional life becomes when you embrace discomfort as a form of guidance instead of treating it as a signal to escape. Integration transforms the mundane into the meaningful. It bridges internal awareness with external action, allowing your life to unfold with more coherence, more authenticity, and more ease. Another practical dimension lies in the way you approach uncertainty. Most people experience uncertainty as a threat, something to be controlled or minimized. But uncertainty is one of the primary tools of the guiding force. It creates openings where your predetermined ideas cannot reach. It dissolves the false stability you cling to so that a truer alignment can emerge. When you learn to lean into uncertainty instead of fearing it, you stop trying to force outcomes and begin allowing the future to collaborate with you. This doesn't mean becoming passive. It means trusting the movement of your life enough to take steps without demanding complete visibility. Action guided by trust carries a different energy than action driven by fear. You may also notice that once you begin integrating this guidance into your life, synchronicities increase, not because the world has suddenly changed, but because your awareness has sharpened. You begin to notice the meaningful coincidences that once brushed past you unnoticed. You catch the gentle rhythms that connect one moment to the next. You sense the subtle choreography that brings people together at the right time. Practical integration heightens your ability to feel these connections, turning what once seemed invisible into something you navigate with increasing clarity. On a psychological level, this awareness strengthens your resilience. When you understand that your life is not random, that your challenges are purposeful, and that you are accompanied by a deeper intelligence within yourself, you move through hardship differently. You stop collapsing under adversity and begin decoding it. You stop feeling abandoned during struggle and begin perceiving the growth unfolding beneath the surface. This shift in perspective transforms not only the emotional tone of your life, but the trajectory of your evolution. It cultivates patience, self-compassion, and inner strength. Integration also influences how you hold desire. Most people chase goals because they believe achieving them will bring fulfillment. But when you begin listening to the guiding presence within you, desire becomes less about pursuit and more about recognition. You stop forcing yourself toward ambitions that do not resonate and start moving toward what feels alive within you. Fulfillment emerges not from achieving specific outcomes, but from aligning with the deeper current of your life. Your desires become less frantic, less ego-driven, more authentic. They stop feeling like tasks and begin feeling like expressions of your true nature. Another real-world implication appears in your creativity. Whether or not you consider yourself an artist, creativity is the natural expression of a mind aligned with its deeper intelligence. When you are guided from within, your work, whether it's art, problem-solving, caregiving, entrepreneurship, or daily living, becomes infused with clarity and originality. New ideas arise more fluidly. Solutions appear with less strain. The pressure to figure things out softens because insight becomes more accessible, emerging from the deeper layers of your mind rather than through mental exertion alone. One of the most profound practical outcomes of integration is the dissolution of the illusion of isolation. When you begin sensing the guidance shaping your life, you also begin sensing the interconnectedness shaping everyone else's. You see how others are guided by their own inner intelligence, even when they are unaware of it. You understand their fears, their struggles, their desires, their contradictions. Compassion grows not from pity, but from recognition. You stop expecting others to understand you perfectly and begin appreciating the unseen battles and inner narratives they carry. Your relationships deepen. Your empathy becomes more refined. You interact with others through presence rather than projection. And perhaps most importantly, practical integration shifts your relationship with yourself. You begin to trust yourself, not the surface-level identity constructed from memory and habit, but the deeper self that has been quietly steering your life since the very beginning. This trust changes everything. Decisions become less agonizing. Transitions become less frightening. You develop an inner stability that is not dependent on circumstances. You stop betraying yourself. You stop abandoning your inner truth for the sake of external approval. You begin living from the inside out rather than the outside in. Integration does not require perfection. It requires awareness, openness, and a willingness to collaborate with the force that has been guiding you since birth. Once this collaboration becomes part of your daily existence, the ordinary world takes on a new texture. Life feels less like a puzzle you must solve and more like a conversation you are finally learning to understand. There comes a moment in every human journey when the quiet truth that has been whispering for years finally steps into the light. It does not arrive with thunder or spectacle. It arrives gently, like dawn slipping over the edge of the horizon, illuminating what you thought you had always known. The truth is that your life has never been a sequence of random moments, isolated events, or disconnected choices. It has never been a straight line, nor a chaotic spiral you were doomed to wander through without meaning. Something has been guiding you from the very beginning. Something subtle, intimate, and profoundly intelligent. Now, As you reach the final movement of this exploration, the question is no longer whether this guiding presence exists, but what your life could become once you consciously collaborate with it. When you pause and look back across the landscape of your life, you can feel the faint outline of its presence, the moments that saved you without explanation, the people who appeared exactly when your heart needed their reflection, the opportunities that arrived the moment you were ready to rise into them, the endings that shattered you but freed you, the coincidences too precise to call accidental, the intuitions that whispered the truth long before the facts aligned. All of these moments are threads woven by the deeper intelligence that has walked beside you since your first breath. It has been shaping your growth with a patience far beyond the scale of human timing. Yet it has never forced you. It has waited for you to notice. And now you are noticing. This awareness opens a doorway, one that will not close again. Once you begin to see the hidden architecture behind your life, the world no longer feels like a place you are trapped in, but a place you are co-creating with a force that understands you better than you understand yourself. Your life becomes not an obstacle course, but a conversation. Every challenge becomes an invitation. Every joy becomes a message. Every ending becomes a pivot. Every uncertainty becomes an opening. Guidance stops feeling mystical and begins feeling natural, like the instinctive way flowers turn towards sunlight or the way rivers find their path to the sea. The most transformative realization is that this guiding presence is not separate from you. It is not an external deity or cosmic puppeteer manipulating your fate. It is the deeper layer of your own being, the part of you that remembers who you are even when your conscious mind forgets. Some call it the soul. Others call it intuition, higher self, inner wisdom, or the quiet consciousness beneath thought. What matters is not the label, but the recognition that you have never been alone in your journey. You have always been accompanied by an older, wiser dimension of yourself. The call now is to begin living in alignment with it. This alignment begins with trust. A trust not built on blind faith, but on recognition. Trust that the discomforts you meet are not punishments, but transitions. Trust that the unexpected redirections in your life are not derailments, but recalibrations. Trust that your longings are not delusions, but signals. Trust that the quiet knowing inside you is not imagination, but orientation. Trust that your deepest truths are not irrational, but essential. To align with this guidance means listening more carefully than you ever have. Listening not only with your mind, but with your body, your emotions, your instincts, and the subtle shifts in your energy. Listening to the friction that tells you something is misaligned. Listening to the ease that tells you a path is true. Listening to the quiet pull that draws you towards something you cannot yet explain. Listening to the silence beneath your doubts. It means living with presence. Being conscious of the moment you are in rather than dwelling compulsively in the stories of the past or the anxieties of the future. Presence sharpens your intuition. Presence reveals synchronicity. Presence allows the guiding force within you to communicate clearly. When you are present, you begin to notice the trail of small signals life leaves at your feet. You begin to feel that you are being led, not pushed, invited, not coerced. Alignment also means courage. The guidance that has shaped your life since birth will sometimes lead you into unfamiliar territories. It will ask you to shed old identities, to release relationships that no longer reflect your evolution, to step into opportunities that expand you, and to confront fears you have long avoided. Courage does not eliminate fear. It moves with it. Courage is a moment you say yes to your deeper self, even when your surface self trembles. It means integrity, not moral perfection, but authenticity, the willingness to live in harmony with who you truly are rather than who you were taught to be. Integrity aligns your outer life with your inner truth. It closes the gap between your desires and your actions. It turns your life into a coherent expression of the deeper intelligence guiding you. When you live with integrity, you stop fragmenting yourself for the sake of approval. You stop abandoning your inner knowing in favor of external expectations. You become whole. And above all, alignment means surrender, not the passive surrender of giving up, but the active surrender of opening up. A surrender that says, I trust the unfolding of my life. I trust that there is meaning in my movement. I trust that the deeper intelligence within me is leading me forward. This surrender does not make you helpless. It makes you unstoppable. Because once you stop resisting your own path, nothing can block the momentum of your evolution. This is a transformational call to live as if your life is guided, because it is, to trust the quiet movements within you, because they are not random, to follow the deeper currents rather than the shallow waves of fear, because they lead to who you were always meant to become. All along, something has been guiding you. It has been shaping your timing, your lessons, your loves, your losses, your awakenings, and your expansions. It has been arranging encounters that reveal you to yourself. It has been weaving the synchronistic threads that make your life feel like a story rather than a sequence of accidents. It has been unfolding through you with a devotion that is both fierce and gentle. You do not need to force your life into meaning. You only need to collaborate with the meaning that has been forming beneath your experiences since the beginning. Take a breath. Feel the presence that has never left you. Acknowledge it, honor it, and step forward into your life not as someone wandering in the dark, but as someone finally aware of the light that has always been guiding them. Your life is not an accident. Your path is not random. Your story is not without purpose. Something has been guiding your life since birth, and now, at last, you are ready to walk alongside it.